Okay. YouTube ላይ ያላችሁ ይሰማችኋል? I think okay, yeah, perfect. Okay, so በአማርኛ ነው የምጀምረው። then clear ያልሆነ ነገር ካለ we'll switch to English. So join እያደረጋችሁ ነው ያላችሁት። So live webinar አዘጋጅተን ከፕሮፌሰር ጀላኒ ኔልሰን ጋር ዛሬ እንግዲህ ስለ ኤክስፒሪየንሱ ሼር ያደርጋል ስላሳለፈው ላይፍ ማለት ነው፣ ስለ ጆርኒው እንደ ኮምፒውተር ሳይንስ ወይም ደግሞ በኮምፒውተር ሳይንስ ኢንትረስትድ ለሆን ደግሞ ያለውን ምክር እንዲሁም እሱም ያሳለፈውን በኮምፒውተር ሳይንስ ያሳለፈውን ጆርኒም ሼር ያደርጋል፣ ለእኛም ያለው ምክር ይሰጣል ማለት ነው። በአጭሩ ሴሽኑ አላማ ይሄ ነው። ሶ እንግዲህ ፕሮፌሰር ጀላኒ የኮምፒውተር ሳይንስ እና ኤሌክትሪካል ኢንጂነሪንግ ፕሮፌሰር ነው በዩሲ በርክሊ እና ብዙ ነገር ያው ራሱን ቢያስተዋውቅና ስለ ራሱ ያለውን ነገር ራሱ ቢናገር አሪፍ ነው ላለው። ሶ ጀላኒ you can go ahead and just introduce yourself.
ኦኬ በአማርኛ እሞክራለሁ፣ ግን የኔ አማርኛ እንደ የህፃን ነው። ስለዚህ አንዳንድ ጊዜ ወደ እንግሊዝኛ መቀየር አለብኝ። ኦኬ እናቴ ኢትዮጵያዊ ነች፣ አባቴ ከአሜሪካ ነው። እኔ ልጅነቴ ሴንት ቶማስ የሚባል ደሴት ደሴት ኖርን ነበር ከ6 ዓመት ጀምሮ እስከ ዩኒቨርሲቲ። በጣም ትንሽ ናት። I think 50,000 ሰው ህዝብ ነው። እና የኔ ትምህርት ቤት ሁለተኛ ደረጃ ትምህርት ቤት በእኛ ክፍል 30 ተማሪዎች ብቻ ነበር። ስለዚህ በጣም ትንሽ ነች። በልጅነቴ ሂሳብ እና ኮምፒውተር ሳይንስ ትምህርት በጣም ወድጄ ነበር እና ከ10 ዓመት ጀምሮ እድሜ ማለት ነው ከ10 ዓመት ጀምሮ ቤታችን ውስጥ የራሴ ኮምፒውተር ነበረኝ እና ለጌም መጫወት ወይም ማውራት ከሌላ ልጆች ጋር በጣም ብዙ ኦንላይን ሄጄ ነበር እና ምናልባት 11-12 ዓመት አካባቢ HTML በራሴ ተማርኩ እና for fun website how do you say I used to make websites for fun. እና I think 16 ዓመት አካባቢ C እና C++ በራሴ ተማርኩ ከዩኒቨርሲቲ በፊት። Okay, I think 12ኛ ክፍል ለዩኒቨርሲቲ apply ማድረግ ነበረብኝ እና ስለ ብዙ ዩኒቨርሲቲ ነገር አላወኩም፣ ግን አባቴ አንድ ማጋዚን ገዛልኝ እና ሳንበብኩት MIT የሚባል ዩኒቨርሲቲ I found out about MIT. ከሱ በፊት ስለ MIT ምንም አላወኩም ነበር and I only applied to MIT and እድለኛ ነበርኩ. I was accepted.
Yes.
I decided to double major ሂሳብ እና computer science. I think MIT ስደርስ I realized ብዙ የማያውቅ ነገር ነበር. ብዙ ተማሪዎች አገር ውስጥ you know አንደኛ የወጣ ተማሪ ብዙ እንደዚህ አይነት ተማሪዎች ነበሩ like ከቻይና አንደኛ በማትሪክ በየነሱ ማትሪክ አንደኛ የወጣ ተማሪ እዛ ነበር የኔ ከብዙ ሀገራት እና እኔ ከበጣም ትንሽ ደሴት ነኝ ስለ እንደ እነሱ አልነበርኩም like they knew a lot of things that I didn't know so luckily like የመጀመሪያ ዓመት ምንም grade on the bottom MIT ውስጥ so you don't have to worry about your grades I just tried to learn as much as I could እና አንዳንዶች ጓደኞቼ ከሌላ ሀገር like ሁለት ከሞልዶቫ ታውቃለህ
okay
it's like but next to Russia and Romania በጣም ትንሽ ሀገር ነች የኔ ሁለት ጓደኞቼ ከሞልዶቫ ናቸው እና እነሱ research ጀመሩ ከአንድ ፕሮፌሰር ጋር እና እኔም ስለ ሪሰርች ምንም አላውቅም ነበር ግን መሞከር ፈለኩ ስለዚህ እኔም ጀመርኩ እና I think ጥሩ ነው እንደ ስራ ነው ግን like ደሞዝ አለ እና የኮምፒውተር ሳይንስ ኤክስፒሪየንስ አገኘው ከአንድ ፕሮፌሰር ጋር እና I think like ያን ጊዜ እኔ በጣም ትንሽ ነገር I didn't know anything like compared to ብዙ ጓደኞቼ so I was just like looking at what they do and trying to follow as much as possible okay I saw by YouTube ላይ ስንት ዓመቴ ነው አሁን 37 ዓመቴ ነው
okay yeah so
okay
yeah I think you have ስለ ባክግራውንድ ነግረህናል maybe like መጀመሪያ ስለ like briefly explain ብታደርገው I mean how and why did you become interested in computer science and / programming
I think video games
yeah okay video games
ለልደቴ 4 ዓመት ልደት በጣም ትንሽ ነበርኩ አንድ ኒንተንዶ አገኘው ለልደቴ እና ከ4 ዓመት ጀምሮ በጣም ሙሉ ቀን like በሳምንት 7 ቀን ሙሉ ቀን በጣም ብዙ ቪዲዮ ጌም ተጫውቼ ነበር እና አሁንም ጌም በጣም ወዳለሁ I think like later ኦንላይን መጫወት ጀመርኩ እና በኦንላይን መጫወት ትንሽ ስለ ኮምፒውተር መማር ነበረብኝ ስለ ኢንተርኔት ስለ HTML ምናምን and I think that's how it started
yeah okay thanks and yeah I think were there like things that you were doing in high school that helped you become the person you are now maybe like something special apart from like maybe playing games
I think self-learning
okay
like በራሴ አንድ መጽሐፋት ስለ C ስለ C++ ስለ HTML ገዤ አንበብኳቸው እሱ በጣም how do you say useful ጠቃሚ
yeah
okay
I think as long as you can like you speak clearly you can just go ahead with English
okay English is better okay በጣም ጥቅም ነበር yeah
okay so I like የተለያዩ ኢንተርቪዎች ላይ በማትስ እንደምትወድ ምናምን ስትናገር ሰምቻለሁ እና ኤምአይቲም ማትስ ላይ ነው ማትስ እና ኮምፒውተር ሳይንስ ነው ሜጀር ያደረገው መጀመሪያ by the way like MIT like ስለሱ አልተናገረም ጀላኒ ስለሱ የሚናገር መስሎ ነበር ኢንትሮዲዩስ ያደረግ ራሱን so basically undergrad MIT ነው የሄደው እና እዛ ኮምፒውተር ሳይንስ እና ማትስ ነው ሜጀር ያደረገው ከዛ ማስተርስ እስከ PhD ድረስ MIT ነው የቀጠለው እና ያ so እንግዲህ አንደርግራድ ማትስ እና ኮምፒውተር ሳይንስ ሜጀር አድርገህ ነበርና ከዛ በኋላ ግን በኮምፒውተር ሳይንስ ነው የቀጠልከው። ሶ ሚን ለምንድን ነው ኮምፒውተር ሳይንስ ነው የመረጥከው ኦቨር ማት?
Oh, okay. Like the kind of computer science that I do is theoretical computer science. So it has both, you know, it's at the intersection of both computer science and math. So even though my degree says computer science, I mean, you can say I was doing both. I was doing something that involved both.
Okay, I see. Yeah. So I mean, for ones like who have no idea about computer science, how do you explain what computer science is as a subject?
Yeah, so I think computer science is the study of, you know, computation broadly. And you know, there are many different sub areas within computer science. My specific area is theoretical computer science, as I mentioned.
Okay.
What does that mean? It means you model computation mathematically, and then within those mathematical models, you try to prove theorems about, you know, what you can do and what you can't do with computation. Like, are there problems that there are no general methods to solve, or for the ones that you can solve, can you prove that, you know, there exist methods that are efficient, that use little time, little memory, or can you prove so-called lower bounds, saying that you need a lot of time or you need a lot of memory? So I work in that area. I usually work on algorithms. I try to come up with efficient methods to solve problems.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just give, you know, one example, right?
Yeah.
Which
Okay.
is,
Sure.
you know, something that everybody is familiar with, which is addition. What is it? Madammar.
Yeah.
Not the political version, just that. Yeah. So, you know, if I give you very big numbers, like, you know, 512 plus 237, right? Then, you know, we know how to do that. 512 plus 237. You write one number. You write one number on top of the other number, and then you add the digits right to left. You keep track of carries, and then, you know, 3 or 4 steps, you're done. You have because it's a 3-digit. There are 3-digit numbers. It takes you about 3-4 steps, right?
Yeah.
But another way to do it is you could say 512. Let me add 237. I'm just gonna, like, you know, the way that little kids add numbers. You say, what's 3 plus 4? Well, here's 3, and let me add 4 to that. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4. I just added 4, so now I have 7, right?
Yeah.
So you can do the same. You can say, hey, let me start with 512, and let me add 237 to that. Okay, 512, 513, 514, 515, and just keep going until you've added 200, until you've incremented 237 times. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
But that's going to be slow, right? It's still correct. It will give you the right answer, but it's slow. So what I work on is, you know, coming up, you know, I look at problems where there might be many different solutions, but I try to find the solution that's as efficient as possible, like as fast as possible, or uses as little memory as possible.
I see. Yeah, interesting. And okay, so can you tell us like about some of the projects that you have done, and yeah,
like in research, computer science research?
Yes.
Yeah, I work a lot on, so they call it streaming algorithms. So you have a lot of data. You make one pass over the data, and you want to use very little memory, so you don't remember most of what you saw. And then, and then you want to answer some questions. So, like, for example, there's something called the distinct elements problem. Imagine that, you know, I'm a website, I'm a server. Lots of people are visiting my website. When they visit me, they have an address. I don't know, people know that you have an IP address. It's like your address on the internet, which is a number. Okay. And so the same person might visit my website many different times, right? But I want to count the number of distinct users. So if the same person visited my website many times, I only want to count them once. So, you know, one of the things I worked on while I was a PhD student, it was in my thesis, was a memory efficient algorithm for counting the number of distinct, you know, elements in a sequence, like the number of distinct users in a sequence of users visiting my website, for example. That's just one, but I mean, I work on a lot of different, you know, problems in this space of streaming algorithms.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. I mean, it's just to mention an example. And also like yeah. I mean, you work on algorithms and algorithmoች ላይ ነው የምትሰራው ምናምን እና like maybe አልጎሪዝም መማር የሚፈልግ አለ። ግን መጀመሪያ ምንድን ነው ይሄ አልጎሪዝም የምንለው ነገር ራሱ ምንድን ነው? ሜቢ ከተሳታፊዎቻችን ላናቅ እንችላለን እና what's it?
Yeah, I mean, an algorithm is just a procedure for solving some problem, right? So
Yeah.
like adding numbers, right? I just mentioned there are two different algorithms, just two different procedures. So one of them is you write one number above the second number, you add the digits from right to left, keeping track of carries. That's an algorithm, right? By the way, you don't need a computer to use an algorithm, right? Like humans can use algorithms, right? We're all adding numbers, we're all multiplying numbers.
Yeah,
that's an algorithm that we're doing.
So, yeah, it's not necessarily like related to computer.
It's related to computation. We are computing
Okay.
something, but humans can compute things, right? As well. I mean, computers are faster at it, but you don't need a computer. You don't need the machine to compute, right?
To compute, yeah. And like, does one have to be, I mean, a genius or maybe good at math to learn about algorithms?
I don't think you have to be a genius. I mean, it is very mathematical. You know, it's somewhere at the intersection of computer science and math. So it definitely, I mean, it helps to, you know, be very comfortable with math, especially with proofs, mathematical proofs.
Yeah.
And you asked me about like, how does one go about learning it too?
Yes.
I mean, there are a lot of, you know, nowadays, more than when I was young or younger, when I was a kid, there are a lot of free resources online. So for example, edx.org or coursera.org or
exactly.
MIT OpenCourseWare, or there are lots of websites where you can find videos of the lectures on YouTube, lots of free textbooks online, things like that.
Yeah, but the link in the comments for edx. Yeah, I mean, you can look at that. And you are also founder of AddisCoder. I mean, they're like ብዙ ተማሪዎች ተሳትፎ ነበር AddisCoder ላይ እና ከዚህ በፊት so I mean, how did you start it? I mean, how did you start AddisCoder, and what was your aim when you started it? And what's your future plan in it?
Yeah, the future. Yeah, okay. I think it's like Asir Amet Bafit, like Macharsha Amet La PhD. Right after I graduated is when I started it. And you know, I was about to graduate. I had received the job from Harvard to be a professor at Harvard and also do some other things, you know, in between. But I was about to graduate in June, and my job was going to start in August.
Okay.
So like that summer, this is 2011 by the, you know, by French calendar. I don't know.
I see. Yeah.
Like, what would that be? Actually, it would be.
2004 እንደዛ
አሁን ምንድን ነው?
2014 ነው።
14? So I think it was like the end of Hulachi Sost, because it's like, you know, because the year changes in September, right? So yeah. So it was right around is then. Basically, I had like the whole Kramt free, so I decided I was going to go to Ethiopia to spend time with my relatives. And I didn't really have much more of a plan than that. But then, as I was thinking more and more, I said, why don't I like do something while I'm there? And I was thinking of what might I do? Maybe I'll teach a graduate course at Amis Kilo. Maybe I'll do something else. Eventually, I settled on teaching a program for high school students. So that was AddisCoder. That was the first time. So it was like more than 10 years ago, a little bit more than 10 years ago. You know, it was 4 weeks long, 2.5 hours a day, Monday through Friday. And I covered a lot of like algorithms and programming in Python. And the students were very strong. You know, we had one of the students in the class ended up, you know, later he got his matric result. He was, you know, like the third highest in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
We had a lot of very strong students. So I think it was a very positive experience. I enjoyed it, and I think a lot of the students enjoyed it too.
Yeah. And maybe your future plan in it, like, I mean, if you have something that you have planned, yeah, under AddisCoder.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, like, I mean, even the program itself changed quite a lot. That was the first time. That was the first AddisCoder. And then the second AddisCoder, when I decided to do it again, I thought, like, what is something that I want to change to make the program, better? And what I noticed is, like, የመጀመሪያ AddisCoder ብዙ ተማሪዎች ከየግል ትምህርት ቤት ነበሩ። But like የመንግስት ትምህርት ቤት ተማሪዎች ብዙ አልመጡም። Like ነፃ ነው፣ ምንም ገንዘብ አያስፈልግም ለAddisCoder።
Yeah.
ግን like for some reason በጣም ብዙ ከግል ከትምህርት ቤት መጡ።
Okay.
So like እሱ ለእኔ like በጣም I don't know. I was not happy with that.
Okay. Yeah.
So I approached the Ministry of Education. Well, first of all, like I wanted more like የመንግስት ትምህርት ቤት ተማሪዎች. So I thought, how can I get them? So I found someone who was in Addis Ababa, and I asked her, like, can you go to different schools, public schools, and put like just flyers for AddisCoder, just advertising,
Okay.
so that they know.
Yeah.
And the school said no.
Oh.
They said this program is not like officially recognized by the Ministry of Education, so we cannot allow you to put flyers, even though like it's free.
I know.
So then I thought, okay, well, why don't I then, if they say it's not recognized by the Ministry of Education, let me fix that. So I contacted the Ministry of Education. I didn't know them. I just, got their information from someone else. And also, not only did I want it to become an officially recognized program, but, like in Ethiopia, we have matric ministry exam, right? I thought like the Ministry of Education, they know who are the top students.
Yeah.
And they can help me, like, they can help invite those students to the program. So I contacted a couple different people at the ministry. I wrote them letters, I emailed them, I called them. And they just, usually didn't respond, or if they responded, they wouldn't be very helpful.
Okay.
So I was kind of like giving up on them. And then I thought, like, I need to like find some Bala Sultan who can like,
Okay. Yeah.
if they talk to them for me, they'll listen to that person because they're not listening to me, right? So and this was back when at the time I was a professor at Harvard already. When I was doing this. So I contacted a few different people, like people high up in the university, at Addis Ababa University, people very high up in the government. I didn't really know them that well myself, but like I found people like my friend's friend or my friend's friend's friend, someone, like who would introduce me.
Yeah.
And, things weren't really moving very quickly. So at some point, someone introduced me to Samhal Mallas.
Okay. I see. Yeah.
Yeah. And, she was working at the Mallas Foundation at the time, and she still is, I guess. This was like Siddist Ahmet Bafit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I told her what I wanted. Like, I want more like Yamangist Timothy Tamariuch. That's all I want. And she said, like, well, why do you only want, the government school students from Addis Ababa? Why don't you take government school students from like all over Ethiopia? And then I thought to myself, I said, well, like, that seems very hard because, they need some place to live if they come to Addis for the program. They need dorms, they need food, they need money for transportation, etc. Right?
Yeah.
And then, she said, don't worry about that. Like, the Mullis Foundation will support that. We can pay for those kinds of things. And, if you need more help with other instructors, we can also, help pay for their accommodations, a place for them to stay, etc. So that's what we did. We had students from every single region of Ethiopia. This was now like 2016. So I guess it was like Hulachi Cement.
Okay. Yeah.
By Ethiopia, I think. Yeah, maybe Hulachi Cement. So I think, we had great students. I think we had something like maybe Samanya Sos Tamarioch. Kasamanya
Oh,
Sos. Yeah, I think Kasamanya Sos ምናልባት like 6-7 ምናምን ብቻ ከአዲስ አበባ ነበሩ።
oh,
ሌሎች
nice.
ከሙሉ ኢትዮጵያ መጡ like for AddisCoder. And we had some very strong students. Maybe like that year on the Yosef Anauga Merete የሚባል ልጅ
Okay.
So,
MIT.
MIT ሄድ
Yeah,
ከአዲስኮደር
I've
በኋላ
seen the
MIT
website. Yeah.
ሄደ ከደብረ ማርቆስ ነው።
Okay, yeah. እንትን ሶስተኛ የወጣው አይደለ? ኢንትራንስ ሁለተኛ ነው? ያ ሁለተኛ።
ሶስት ዮናታን ነበር። እሱም የአዲስኮደር ተማሪ ነበር። ከወሎ ነው፣ ከደሴ። እሱም ወደ መጀመሪያ ወደ ካይስት ሳውት ኮሪያ ደቡብ
ትራንስፈር አድርጎ ኤግዛክትሊ
ወደ ኤምአይቲ። አሁን የኤምአይቲ መጨረሻ ዓመት ተማሪ ነው። አራተኛ ዓመት ተማሪ። We had many students like on ዳዊት ከሀረር። ዳዊት አሁን ሳውት ኮሪያ ተማሪ ነው፣ ሶል ናሽናል ዩኒቨርሲቲ። ግን በጣም ብዙ አሪፍ ተማሪ መጡ እና it was very I think a very good year. And then we continued, after that we grew the program ከ83 ተማሪዎች ወደ 175
Oh yeah.
ሆነ like የሚቀጥለው ዓመት actually I think የሚቀጥለው ዓመት AddisCoder አልነበረም፣ ግን like 2 ዓመት ወደፊት we started again and then we had 175 ተማሪዎች. And then again I guess 2011 በኢትዮጵያ እንደገና like 170 ምናምን ተማሪዎች ነበሩ። አንድ ነቡስ የአንተ ጓደኛ I think አሁን የመጀመሪያ ዓመት ተማሪ ነች MIT። ሶስት ወደ ሃርቫርድ ሄዱ። በጣም like most students stay in Ethiopia for university, but we have we got very strong students. Again, maybe like 10%, less than 10% from Addis Ababa. The vast majority of our students are from everywhere else, different places.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I mean, like, and this year, like last year and this year, I mean, last year, the past 2 years, it didn't happen because of COVID. Yeah, right. Yeah, and I have even like I had applied
Okay.
in 2011 in Ethiopia. That 2012. Yeah.
The year after Nebus.
Yes, I think and because of COVID, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And like, well, how about this year? Is it going to happen or?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody who's involved, including me, really wants it to happen. But I think now it's we have not announced it for 2022 yet. Part of the reason is because of the current conflict.
Yeah.
So we're just monitoring the conflict very closely. We want to make sure that when we hold it, it's going to be safe. Because again, it's not only happening in Addis, right? Whenever we hold it, we use buses to bring students from all over Ethiopia, right? And especially outside Addis right now, things are a little bit in conflict. So yeah, we just hope. I mean, I'm looking forward to the next time we're able to hold it safely.
Yeah. Okay. So, and let's talk about like things that one should do, maybe to be good at programming, and
I think practice is important. Like on top of just on top of majoring in computer science and taking courses at university, I did a lot of self-practice myself. Like when I was in college, I remember there was a summer where 8 hours a day, like pretty much every single day, I was just practicing problems. There were all these websites with like practice problems, and I would do them. That was very helpful for me as I was like training myself. Websites like these days, I think Codeforces is a very popular one, codeforces.com. Back then, it was topcoder.com, the Sphere Online Judge, spoj.pl. I think now it's spoj.com. There were a bunch of different ones, but I think those are all very helpful for me.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
And also online communities like forums, message boards. Whenever I was practicing, if I ever got stuck somewhere, there was a community of other, algorithmic programmers who I'd be able to reach out to on these message boards and often get, advice from.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you can share the links of the website that you mentioned now, and I can share it, and I can put it in the description box, and yeah, and also like
I put them in the
okay,
YouTube.
Okay. And maybe like the advices you have for ones who are I mean self-teaching themselves how to code. Maybe I mean it's somehow related, but yeah, specifically who are not learning but just self-teaching themselves, who are not in college. We'll come to the ones who are in college.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't have any advice further than like trying to train yourself on these, these places. I mean, I have other general advice. I mean, I get a lot of email all the time from students who ask me, I just graduated from university in Ethiopia. I want to do my master's, or I want to do my PhD, or I just finished high school. I'm interested in applying to university abroad. Like things like this. I don't know if we have time for that now, or you want to do that later, but I have some maybe general advice that I think is useful.
Yeah, we'll do that later. Yeah, we'll do that later. And also like did like measuring in math, how did it help you? Like maybe if it has helped you, I mean measuring in math, how did it help you? Yeah, in your like in computer science journey, or yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the computer science that I do is very mathematical, and I use tools from pure mathematics a lot in my work, and also I think just generally training in math helps in like problem solving and thinking logically and thinking rigorously, or being rigorous about things.
Yeah, and I think we can answer like questions from the audience. No, so I think ጥያቄዎቻችሁን comment section ላይ ማስቀመጥ ትችላላችሁ አሁን. Then I think and I can it says, are there algorithms that computers cannot perform?
Are there other problems that computers cannot solve?
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, this is an area called computability theory, and in fact, there are problems where you can prove that there is no efficient not even efficient. There's no procedure. There's no algorithm period that solves the problem. So one of the most famous such problems is something called the halting problem. So what is the halting problem? Well, the motivation is something like this. Like imagine that I'm a software company like Microsoft or whatever else, and I release programs, right? And I would really like to know that my programs don't have bugs. So I would like to have some automated way of like looking at a program, looking at the code, and flagging whether or not this code has a bug. Now there are lots of different types of bugs, but like one kind of bug is having an infinite loop. So your program just gets stuck and goes on in some loop forever. And doesn't stop. I want to detect that. If I were to run this program, would it get caught in an infinite loop or not? So the input to the problem is like the source code of a program, and the output should be like true if the program would halt in finite time, or false if it would loop and go on forever. Okay, so this is called the halting problem.
Okay.
And it's possible to prove mathematically that there is no algorithm which solves this problem. So I mean, just for intuition, like the most naive idea might be, okay, if I want to solve this problem, what will I do? When someone gives me the source code for the program, I'll simulate running that program myself and try to detect whether or not I'm getting into an infinite loop, right, when I'm simulating it. But like, how would I know that? Like if I eventually finish, then I know that the program halts. But if I'm still going on and on, how do I know that like it's not, the program is not just about to finish, in just 5 more steps, right? Like I would have to, there's no kind of end criteria for me to know when I should finish simulating to know for sure that the program wouldn't terminate. And I mean, that's not a proof that there's no solution. I mean, this just says simulation doesn't work, but you can prove that there is no solution at all, no matter what you do.
And there is a question. It says, hey, I'm a computer science student at Hausa University, and the education is more of theoretical, and I'm having difficulty practicing the practical lesson, and how can I improve the practical part? I think we have addressed this question, but is there something that you
I mean even
add?
It's not just Hausa. I think even in the US, a lot of students say that what they learn in the university is more academic or more theoretical. But then what students do a lot in the US is they do internships in the summer or in the winter. I don't know exactly how available summer internships are in Ethiopia, but that would be like something where you get some hands-on practical experience, right? Or even if you don't find an internship that you like, over the summer, try and start your own thing, like create your own project. Maybe it'll even turn into a company, I don't know. But even if it doesn't, try to give yourself like more hands-on projects to do when school is out.
Maybe freelancing, or I don't know, like something that they can do online also might help. And okay. Okay, I think we have addressed just okay. Student. It says, I'm 4th-year computer science student, and can you give us tips to select final project in 2021/22?
Oh, tips to select final project. Well, I mean, I don't know the rules of the class. Like, are you allowed to do anything you want, or is there some scope?
I'm not sure. It's not mentioned.
Okay. I mean, generally, it depends. Like for academic projects, if you want to do research, like one way to go about finding a project is to look at lots of papers and try to find ways of improving upon recent papers in the literature. So, like for me, I work on algorithms, right? So there are conferences like ESA, the European Symposium on Algorithms, or SODA, the Symposium on Discrete Algorithms, or APPROX is like a conference on approximation algorithms. There are lots of different ones. That's just one area, but like there are different conferences in cryptography, conferences in operating systems, in networking, and machine learning, and deep learning, whatever, computer vision. Look at papers in the area that you're interested in, recent papers. Sometimes you might see some question that's unanswered by that paper, and you could try to extend it. I think that's a way to come up with some final project.
Yeah,
those are more research oriented as opposed to applied.
Yeah, I think there's also another question, some interesting question maybe. What's your opinion in the development of AI and companies like Neuralink? And maybe like a future of AI, like something that you might want to say. So, yeah.
The future of AI, I mean, the AI is already hugely impactful. The future of it, it's hard for me to predict. I mean, I imagine there's going to be, more automation, more robotics, more impact of robotics. Like I remember, I mean, there are all these companies now that, are trying to develop self-driving cars, for example, right? I don't know how close or far we are from actually having them, but I think that's going to have a major impact on the world if things become even more automated. There are people who look at like the so-called future of work. Imagine a world 100 years in the future where robots do everything for us, right? Like most of the jobs that aren't super highly skilled, let's say, end up being done by robots, right? Like what's going to happen to everyone? How are people going to feed themselves? Like is if people don't have to work anymore, is the government just going to give everyone money to live? Like, what do you do with your day? Like, so these are kind of societal questions. How is AI going to impact society? But it's not something that I myself have really thought about a whole lot. I would say my home community is not really AI. It's not my area of expertise. But I mean, it has been, the things that have been made possible by recent advances in, say, machine learning, I think have been pretty impressive.
And maybe like and also what area of like computer science or technology overall will you think will be like more powerful in the future?
Will be more powerful in the future.
Yeah.
I mean, ML is definitely something that's shown itself as being very useful now. There are other areas that are also important, like privacy. So I mean, it's something that I'm starting to work on just a little bit myself. This area called so-called differential privacy. There are how do you allow companies to compute on our data and extract some knowledge or utility out of that computation without compromising the privacy of the people whose data was involved. So the people who work on this kind of thing. I saw someone asked a question about what about also like quantum computing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that people have been working on for decades now, and
Yeah.
we have a lot of things that we know we can do better if we have quantum computing. But we don't actually have quantum computers like the physical machines. So that's an area where, if one day someone is able to actually come up with a quantum computer that can be built and run all these algorithms we've developed, I think that would be a big game changer. But it's like high risk, high reward, maybe. Like the risk is that we never actually get to build such a machine. But I guess that's to be seen.
Yeah. And also like there's a question, do you prefer researching instead of working on big tech companies, or has it been just that way so far?
Well, I mean, some big tech companies actually do research as well, because they're always trying to improve their own products, right? So I mean like for example, I actually work with Google like 20% time. So like one day a week, I work with folks at Google with the research team. But even there, sometimes we interact with product people. Well, actually, quite a lot we interact with product people. And when I was a PhD student, I worked at IBM for 2 summers, and I worked at Microsoft for 1 summer too. So I mean, there's a lot of flow of information in both directions between academia and industry in computer science.
Yeah.
There are a lot of professors who start their own companies, or like work with existing companies, do consulting, whatever.
Yeah. And I think like advices you have like for ones who want to major in computer science and who are in high school currently. I mean, some of the advices you have for us. I'm one of them, so yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think get as much as you can out of your schools, but also try do as much as you can to take your own education into your own hands, right? So seek additional ways of gaining knowledge outside of what's taught in your school. Go online. As I mentioned, there are lots of online resources. If you're social, like I feel like I'm a social person. I don't like to just sit in my room and study. There are lots of online communities where, like for example, when I was doing all these practice problems on TopCoder, etc., there were these message boards and online forums where I had a lot of online friends or online acquaintances who were interested in the kinds of things that I was interested in. So I feel like we used to push each other, and it made it fun, I think.
And maybe if there is like, if you have different advice for maybe who are majoring computer science currently, and maybe who are in like college, university.
Yeah, I mean, try
in computer science and related fields, like
try to get experiences while you're in college. Get internships if you can. Do independent projects. Approach if there's research happening on your campus, approach the people doing research, professors, postdocs, PhD students, whoever, and try and get involved. Even if you feel like you don't know enough to get involved. I mean, my first time getting involved in research, I didn't really do anything that meaningful. I would just go to their meetings every week. So like there was a research group, they would take turns presenting new research to each other, you know, one day a week. And I would just go to those meetings and listen to them. Right. So like it was not, they didn't mind. I mean, like there was a free seat, so why not? And I feel like I learned a lot just by listening to them. And then after going for months, you know, I realized, you know, what it was all about, and I was in a better position to do things myself. So yeah, I mean, just get out there, I think.
And I mean, like maybe there are like students who are applying to colleges currently, and you have been at like you have studied at MIT, and you have taught at Harvard, and currently you're professor at Berkeley. And I mean, do you have some suggestions for schools? Like, I mean, and just talk about the schools, like what MIT and how like what is it like, and Harvard,
So I'm
and
curious.
other schools like Princeton also. I mean, you have been there once, I think. Yeah.
So I have a question. Most of the audience, are they living, the audience of this interview right now, are they living in Ethiopia, or are they just all over the place?
I think most of them are living in Ethiopia.
Just out of curiosity, I can see some comments on the side. So for everyone who's listening, just like type in where you are right now, like what country, what city you're in. I know there's a delay. I think they don't see us immediately, right? But I'm gonna take a look and see where people say they're living. But anyway, you know, for the people who are not in the U.S., especially the people who are living in Ethiopia, I see a lot of people apply to a university in the U.S. and you know, they might get accepted and then they don't get a scholarship, or they get a 50% scholarship or something like that. But you know, the price is like, you know, let's say the price is $50,000 a year, which is like, you know, 2.5 million bud per year or something, right?
Yeah.
And then even if they give you 50% discount, okay, now you have to pay more than 1 million bud per year. It's still not really possible, right?
Yeah.
So I think my advice to students is to be very careful about which schools you apply to. Apply to the schools that, you know, have a history and like a commitment to like provide full scholarships to international students. So Harvard, MIT, Princeton, Amherst College. There are a couple other, you know, there are a couple other ones. You look for like need blind admissions, schools that have need blind admissions, even for international students.
Yeah, there are. Yeah.
And even some of the ones that are not need blind for international students, they sometimes will give full scholarships. Like for example, there's a student from AddisCoder who now is a first-year student at Pomona College. He's from Gambela High School. He got a 100% scholarship. He doesn't pay anything. I think they even bought his plane ticket for him. So just make sure that you research like which schools actually don't just apply to any school. Especially mostly you shouldn't even really consider government schools. Like I think my school that I teach at is a good school, UC Berkeley, but almost no international student is going to get a scholarship to UC Berkeley, right? So it's the private schools that are willing to give money to international students, because the government schools, you know, their philosophy is like, we're being funded by tax money from U.S. citizens, or like people who live in the U.S. anyway. And like, you know, we shouldn't be using the money of those Americans to train students who are outside, right? We should use the money to train them, to train the people who actually are giving us the money. So a lot of government schools will not give scholarships to international students. Another thing I'll say is for people who finish their bachelor's and now they want to do a master's, I often tell them, don't even bother applying to the U.S. There's something called the MasterCard scholarship. Some of those, you know, they have alliances with some universities that do provide that where they will provide a full scholarship to do a master's in the U.S. But mostly, master's programs in the United States mostly are ways for the university to make money, right? Like they charge high tuition for master's degrees, and like they're not really looking to give full scholarships for masters. So if you want to do a master's, my advice, and if you want to do it abroad, I mean, you could do, there are master's programs in Ethiopia. If you want to do it abroad, then Canada, I think, is a good option. A lot of Canadian universities are also very strong in computer science, and they do provide, full financial support to do a master's for international students. They'll even pay you a salary. And you'll get research experience when you're there doing your master's, like Waterloo, University of Toronto, University of British Columbia, University of Alberta, McGill.
This is for masters, right? I don't
for
think
masters. Yeah, for masters. I don't know exactly how it works for undergrad, for
undergrad. I don't think like
in Canada.
A lot of universities in Canada, I mean, we can say like all of them don't offer full scholarship for international students.
Yeah.
Full financial aid. So yeah.
But yeah,
I think
for example, like
for masters.
My wife's friend, I think she graduated from Hilco recently in Addis Ababa. And then, she just this year got accepted to a master's program in Canada at the University of Alberta. And she's there right now, fully, I think 100% funded by the university. She doesn't pay anything, as far as I understand. So, I mean, I think it's a pretty good option.
Yeah.
There are some other programs too, not just Canada. I think like in Europe, maybe in South Korea, I'm not sure. But I'm not as familiar with those myself.
Okay, but like, I mean, your experience, like, I mean, are there like that much difference between those colleges, like MIT, Harvard, and UC Berkeley? I mean, the colleges that you were studying at and teaching at, and I mean, yeah.
Is there a difference?
Maybe like exactly like in terms of maybe like the courses they teach, or maybe the experience that you had.
You mean the difference between Harvard and MIT, or like the difference between those schools and like other schools which are not as famous?
Exactly, and what you recommend. I mean, like which one is the best for you, or like, yeah.
So I just want to make sure I understood the question. Are you saying like what's the difference between Harvard and MIT, or what's the difference between like these really strong schools versus schools that are not as strong necessarily?
I mean, schools that you recommend us like to apply to, like for example, because like there are schools, all schools are not offering full scholarship for international students, right? That they're like this MIT, Harvard, and UC, not UC Berkeley, but they're like Princeton, right? I mean, I just want you to talk about those schools and I mean, and their experience, maybe your experience there in those schools.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think first you should get accepted before you compare them, right? Because the chance to get accepted is very, very low. Like this year, or like if you look at the freshmen at Harvard this year, so they just applied last year. The admission, the percent of students who applied who were accepted was something like 3.5%, or even less than 3.5%. Right? This is tiny. So it happens a lot that a student can apply to all those schools. They apply to Harvard, MIT, Princeton, Yale, Columbia, all these schools that give Amherst College give full financial aid to international students, and then they get rejected from every single one.
Yeah.
So I would say just first before you compare them, before a student just compares them, really put as much effort into your application as possible, because it matters a lot. These are very hard places to be accepted.
Yeah.
There are lots of students who get perfect scores, perfect GPAs. They were ranked first in their class every semester. Their SATs were very strong, and they still don't get accepted. And I think let me actually search for something. So here's just me Googling. In the United States, apparently there are something like 24,000 government high schools, okay, in the whole country. And there are even more private, okay? So meanwhile, how many first-year students are at Harvard each year? Only about 1,600.
Yeah.
They accept more than that, but not everyone comes. Some people, they get into both Harvard and Stanford. They go to Stanford maybe, right? So they accept more. Let's say they accept, I don't know, 2,000, 2,500. I'm not sure. But again, there are 24,000 public high schools in the United States. So what does that mean? That means that, at least 90% of high schools, the number one student in the whole school is probably going to get rejected from Harvard.
Yeah.
Probably everyone in that high school will be rejected. Only 10% of high schools even are going to have one student go. Maximum, just looking at the numbers. Yeah. So it's extremely hard. Grades are not enough. It's not enough to have perfect 100s. You need to have something like special and unique about you. Like, in the US, what I see is like some of these students created something, they created a company while they were in high school, or they were doing research while they were in high school, or they did some kind of competition, like science competition or math competition, and they were like the number one student in the country, or the number one student in their state, or something like that.
Yeah.
So, a lot of, maybe they started a nonprofit organization, right, in high school. I mean, when you're, with the kind of level of competition that it takes to get into some of these schools, it's very, very difficult. I think people might not fully appreciate just how difficult it is. And it's true that, yes, AddisCoder has had 5 students go to Harvard so far. 3. We've had 3. Wait, sorry. We have 4. We have had 4 students go to Harvard so far.
Okay.
We have 3 there right now, and we have another student, Halawi, who graduated many years ago. We've had 5 students go to MIT. We've had 3 students go to Princeton, 1 to Stanford, 2 to Columbia, etc. But even if you add all that up, we've trained more than 500 students since we started, right? All those 500 students didn't go to Harvard and MIT and Princeton, etc. Right? Only a very small percentage of those 500 got into those schools.
Yeah.
So, don't bank on it. Even if you're a very strong student, there's no guarantee that you're going to be accepted to a school like that.
That's true. Yeah. And I think like we are almost done. And anything that you want to say before we end our meeting? Anything final words? Yeah.
Final words for me, or final question? Oh, for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I don't have anything generally that I want to say that I haven't already touched on. I mean, thanks for having me here, and I'm happy to to stay on a little longer and answer questions if people have questions in the comments. One thing I guess maybe that we didn't talk that much about is like the PhD. So I talked a little bit about undergrad, a little bit about masters. PhD, I think not everyone fully understands what a PhD is even about. Like, what does it mean to do a PhD? I did not fully understand that until I was, already at college, toward the end of my college, actually. But, being a PhD student is not really like being a student. It's more of a job. So, your job is to do research, right? So in some countries, PhD students don't even take classes. Like if you go to the United Kingdom, there's no PhD students don't take classes. They just do research the full time, and you get paid a salary to be a PhD student, and you don't pay tuition. I mean, there is tuition kind of on paper, but it's like an accounting trick for the university. It has nothing to do with you. The tuition will be paid by the government itself, via grants, or it'll be paid by the university itself. Maybe they'll make you work as a teaching assistant for courses, and then waive your tuition. So you never have to pay, you make a salary. In fact, when I was a PhD student, the whole time I was a PhD student, my parent, I was financially independent from my parents. I paid my own rent. I paid my own everything, my own bills for food. Whenever I wanted to visit my parents, I paid the flight myself often, etc. Right. And I was actually saving money as a PhD student. So I think people don't fully appreciate that. The PhD is about doing research, which is like discovering new things, writing publications about those things, etc. And if you want to have a career where you do research in your career, like you want to be a professor, or you want to maybe work in industry, but doing research in industry, a PhD is required. So that's why you would want to do it. And it's long, right? So PhDs typically in computer science a typical length is like 5 years to do a PhD.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's it, and I'm done with my questions as well. And I don't think there are questions in the comments sections as well. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, thanks for having me.
I think yeah, thank you so much. But I'm Yeah, thank you. Yeah.